Welcome to Jikook Are Dating. Hope you're all doing well, Jikook fans. Today, I bring you a video full of happiness, tenderness, and surprises because yes, our Jikook is back. And when I say back, I don't mean they're causing trouble, but they're back to share the Jikook interactions we've all been missing with the public. And here, as I always say, it's all about patience. Waiting calmly, because sooner or later they will. Bring back the moments we love. That night, there was no official announcement, no press conference, no written clarification from the agency. But one thing is certain, ARMY's eyes never miss a detail. In a moment that initially seemed ordinary, the camera captured Jimin and Jungkook's closeness, which immediately set the timeline ablaze. A smile that felt too comfortable, a distance that was too close, body language that felt familiar. And from that moment on, one big question began to echo. Was this really a coincidence? Many fans called the moment a confirmation without words. Jimin seemed to stay by Jungkook's side longer than usual, not just passing by or saying hello. There was a small laugh shared between the two, a brief glance that made ARMY hold their breath. For some, this might seem trivial, but for those who have been following BTS's dynamics for a long time, even the smallest details carry meaning. What made the situation even more intense was what happened next. Instead of letting the moment flow, the camera suddenly shifted.
The focus changed.
And there RM appeared, with a calm yet controlled expression. Many fans felt there was an effort to neutralize the atmosphere, as if something too conspicuous needed to be covered up immediately. Not with anger, not with a ban, but with a subtle and very characteristic leader's diversion. Did RM really want to hide something? Or was he protecting his members from wild public interpretations? This is where speculation begins to branch out. Some ARMY believe RM was simply fulfilling his role as a balancer, keeping the focus on the group, not on one personal moment. But others feel that something was stopped too quickly, too neatly to be called a coincidence. Jimin himself looked very comfortable. There were no awkward gestures, no attempts to distance himself. On the contrary, his presence beside Jungkook felt natural, like two people who were used to being in the same space without needing to explain anything. Jungkook was the same, calm, relaxed, as if unaware that millions of eyes were analyzing his every move. Interestingly, after that moment, their interaction was hardly mentioned again in the main frame. The focus returned to the group, to shared laughter, to general conversation. But for ARMY, the traces had already been left behind. Video clips were spread. Screenshots circulated. Analysis began. And from there, the narrative developed. If there was nothing, why did it have to be diverted? Of course, it all comes back to one important fact. BTS is a global artist living under extreme scrutiny. Every interaction can be overanalyzed. Every smile can be misinterpreted. RM, as the leader, may just want to ensure that small moments don't turn into a storm of rumors that could burden Jungkook and Jimin. But it is precisely this calm and controlled attitude that makes some fans even more convinced that there is something to be protected. Is this really a confirmation? Or is it just a reflection of the close friendship that has always existed? The answer may never be spoken directly, but one thing is undeniable. Jimin and Jungkook's togetherness that night felt different. It felt real. It felt warm. And the reaction afterwards made the moment even more unforgettable. In the end, maybe it's not about who is with whom, or who is hiding what. Maybe it's about how BTS, with all their sincerity and complexity, remain ordinary people who have personal space that they sometimes want to protect, even from the love of ARMY. And as always, ARMY will continue to observe, not to judge, but to understand. Because behind every small moment, there is always a bigger story waiting to be read. And it is precisely at that point that this story becomes deeper, more interesting, and more difficult to ignore. After that moment of togetherness spread, ARMY's reaction came like a huge wave that couldn't be stopped. Not with excessive shouting, but with sharp, silent analysis. Fans began comparing the timing, camera angles, and even the sequence of movements. Some noticed how Jimin always adjusted his steps to match Jungkook's. Others highlighted Jungkook's changing expressions, a small smile that appeared only when Jimin was nearby, then disappeared when the focus shifted. What made many people even more curious was the silence that followed. There was no clarification, no denial, no jokes that usually appear to defuse rumors. Everything went on as normal, too normal. And for ARMY who have been following BTS for years, that kind of silence is often louder than an official statement. RM is back in the spotlight, not because of his words, but because of his attitude. The way he takes over the conversation, the way he closes the space for interpretation with his measured professionalism. There's nothing wrong with that. A leader's job is to maintain balance. But in the eyes of fans, it feels like an attempt to protect two people who are under too much scrutiny. Is RM trying to hide something? Or does he just want to protect Jungkook and Jimin from becoming victims of exaggerated narratives? The question continues to linger without a definite answer. What is clear is that RM seems very aware of the cameras, aware of the timing, and aware that a single second of delay can give rise to thousands of new speculations. Meanwhile, Jimin and Jungkook remain themselves. Not excessive, not defensive. It is precisely this calmness that makes many ARMYs feel that there is honesty there. If this were just empty rumors, there would usually be a deliberately created distance. But what we see is consistent togetherness, not flaunted, not crudely hidden just there. Some fans call this the silent but real phase. A condition where there is no acknowledgement, but also no denial. A gray area that leaves the public wondering, while those within it seem to understand each other, without needing explanations. And perhaps that is where its strength lies. Not in the sensation, not in the big drama, but in the small details that slip through the script. A brief glance, a distance that is not pushed away, reactions that are too natural to be engineered. In the end, whatever the truth may be, one thing becomes increasingly clear to ARMY. The dynamic between Jimin and Jungkook is something precious, whether it is as a very deep friendship or an emotional bond that only they understand. And RM, with all his wisdom, probably just wants to make sure that whatever form that bond takes, it remains safe in the spotlight. This story may never get an explicit answer, but that's precisely why it lives on, continually discussed, continually analyzed. Because in the world of BTS, the strongest things are often those that are not spoken aloud. If you want, I can continue to the climax, or turn this continuation into a more suspenseful YouTube narrative that keeps viewers hooked until the end. Just let me know.